flick through the complaint with Blake Lively and discuss a little bit with you. She attended a meeting about the conduct that was in the work environment. This was in January the 4th, and it doesn't give the year. It doesn't give the year. I don't know if it's the time when they were filming or what. That's not pretty clear. But these demands are pretty disgusting, you know. So she said all that, right, that she didn't want. This meeting was an essential step in the process. Okay, I'm going to read this because it is a bit disturbing, I'll be honest. I don't know why she would have to say these things, you know. No more showing nude videos or images of women, including producer's wife, to Blake Lively and her employees. No mention of Boldoni or Mr. Heath's previous porn addiction or BL's lack of pornography consumption to BL to other crew members. No more discussions to Blake and her employees about personal experiences with sex during, including as it relates to spouses and others. But doesn't that relate to the story? You're talking about a relationship that happened, and you've got to sort of look at your own relationship, compare that, and think, well, what elements in my relationship do I have the power, and you know, that type of thing. Well, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, you would have to discuss those things, wouldn't you? I'm not sure. I'm not a director. I'm not into movies, by the way. I'm no solicitor, by the way. I've just worked in law and accounting, so totally different background. But it was done around the time of the COVID time. No more mention by Boldoni of him speaking to BL's dead father. That is so strange. I mean, what's wrong with talking to your parents when they've passed away? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with him saying that? What the fuck is wrong with this woman? No more pressing by Mr. Boldoni for BL to disclose her religious beliefs or unsolicited sharing of his. Okay, well that's one I do agree on. If BL and her infant is exposed to COVID again, BL must be provided with immediate notice as soon as Wayfarer or any other producers become aware to such exposure, without her needing to uncover days later after. An intimacy coordinator must be present at all times when Blake Lively is on set in scenes with Boldoni. I just want to say she was pregnant in one of the interviews. When I was pregnant, I was pretty ratty. I don't know about anyone else. I was irritable. Everyone was tight on me, you know what I mean? And I felt like a flump, you know? And you snap. So, but this is not just when she's like, I feel when she's tired and exhausted, her speech gets lower in etiquette. So I'm trying to figure out, is it something that she's just not capable of doing all this work and having 4 children? Is it a struggle for her? I'm not making excuses now. I'm saying this was around the big time when everyone was wearing masks. It was, people weren't themselves, they just weren't. And I feel what she should personally do is take back everything that she said, apologise and tell him that I was wrong, you know what I mean? But she won't do that. She's not going to do that. And that would probably remedy her if she said she had some kind of like, you know what I mean, some mental illness or something, or, you know, she was struggling with depression or what have you. You know what I mean? But what she's not doing is even looking at it in that way. She's saying he's a sexual predator. That's that. He's in touch with his femininity. There isn't anything wrong with that, Blake, you know. I find it sweet when men are like that, you know. I find it irritating as well, though. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie, you know, when men think they know how it feels to be in absolutely immense pain giving birth, they don't know. And just need to keep their mouth shut. But he doesn't cross that line. Well, I don't know, but he doesn't seem like some kind of lech, you know, like Bill Cosby or friggin' the other one, you know. I don't understand why people are lifing people for just touching an ass, you know what I mean? It's just wrong. But, you know, there's serious crimes out there being committed. BL to have a representative on set at all times and with monitored during scenes involving nudity, sexual activity or violence with Boldoni. So her representative could be witness to this then. Has a representative put a witness statement in yet? I doubt it. I doubt it because it didn't happen, you know. No more filming with any BL nudity without fully executed. SG complaint nudity radar in place. Any such footage readily shot without a rider in place, as if he gives a shit about your fanny, love. You know what I mean? Any scene of BL or ever another performer depicting the character of Lily that involves nudity or simulated sex must be conducted strictly in accordance with the above referenced nudity rider and must be adhered to BL's approved script. An intimacy coordinator must be on set for all scenes involving nudity and or simulated sex and must have a monitor to ensure compliance. I mean, she's a brilliant actress. She looks like she's lapping it up when he's all over her like that. I mean, I would. I mean, Jesus, married or not, I would take it. No. I'm only saying, flirting's one thing, you know, committing adultery is another, isn't it? And I mean, this is the thing about being an actress. She's got to learn to be intimate with people. And if she can't be intimate with people, that is going to be a problem, full stop. Because she's a beautiful woman, right? And a lot of her stories will be rom-coms. She ain't good actress. I've never seen her in a thriller. I've never seen her be anything but Blake Lively, you know what I mean? I might have seen her in one film, I thought, yeah, but she had a good part, you know what I mean? She did, she had a good part. But, no more private multi-hour meetings in BL trailer with Boldoni crying, with no outside BL appointed representative on monitor. Oh, well, why was he crying? That's upsetting. Why would a man be crying in front of you like that? I mean, what's triggered that? Did you have some deep conversation with him? Maybe you crossed the line. Maybe you made him cry. Engagements of an experienced producer or to supervise the safety of the cast and crew schedule. Like he's some kind of lech. Oh my word. Engagements of BL approved A-list stunt double for Lily and scenes No more adding sex scenes, oral, or camera climaxing of BL outside the scope of the script BL approved when she signed onto the project. No more asking or pressuring BL to cross physical picket lines. No more retaliatory or abusive behaviour to BL for raising concerns or requesting safeguards. 30. An in-person meeting before production resumes with Boldoni and Mr. Heath and Mrs. Sachs, the Sony representative, the new producer, BL, and PL spouse Ryan Reynolds, to confirm and approve the plan for an implementation of the above that will be adhere to for a physical and emotional safety of BL, her employees and all cast and crew. Fuck off. This meeting was an essential step in the process the parties had agreed several months before to allow the cast and crew to safely resume production of the film. In November 2023, the parties had agreed in writing to implement a list of protections enumerated in contract entitled Protections for Return to Production. I mean, this is November 2023. You know, this is like 2 years after the film, basically. It's like she was trying to get it in there, you know what I mean? Attached here to Exhibit A, which included 17 provisions designed to require Federer to cease the on-set behaviour of Boldoni and Heath. One of those provisions required an all-hands meeting to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of certain protections that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Miss Lively. Her employees and all cast and crew are moving forward. After receiving the document, Wayfair responded that Wayfair and Sony Production, respectively, acknowledge that Miss Lively has concerns regarding safety and professionalism in the workplace and culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, during the safe environment for all is paramount, irrespective of the differing viewpoints regarding your outlined requests. We find most of them not only reasonable but also essential for the benefit of all parties inclusive. Involved. At the end of January 4th meeting, having discussed the length, so it took 3 months to get to this point. So this is 2004 now, this January 4th with the meeting. And these concerns come up in the meeting, yeah? Having discussed at length and details of the concerns that had been expressed by Mrs. Lively and others, the parties agreed to implement and follow the production for return to production to ensure that the film could be completed, marketed and released safely and successfully, and it was. Production of the film resumed on the 5th of January and concluded on February 9th, 2024. The film has been a resounding success. Not really, love. You've ruined it for him. You've absolute cake. You know what I mean? You sponge brain bitch, you know. Leading up to in connection with the release of the film during the summer of 2024, Mrs. Lively and fellow cast members promoted the film in accordance with the marketing plan created and delivered by the film distributor Sony, which is summarised in the talking points attached hereto as Exhibit C. Mrs. Lively and other cast members were under contractual obligation to engage in media, press, marketing and activities and render promotional services in accordance with the marketing plan. The marketing plan directed the cast to focus more on Lily's strength and resilience, as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence, and to avoid talking about the film that makes it feel sad, heavy. It's a story of hope. You kidding me? Till the next black eye, mate. Yeah? You have no... Just Jesus Christ. Just want to mention what she mentions on her in number 8. What the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan by Mr. Boldoni and his team, described as social manipulation. Gives you an idea what goes on in Hollywood. Designed to destroy Mrs. Lively's reputation. That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Listen, his film. You destroyed his film. You know, it's funny how she uses that word, isn't it? That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfarer's co-founder, co-chairman and leading financier is a multi-billionaire Steve Sowitz, who divulged in the film's New York premiere on August 6th of 2024 that he was prepared to spend $10 million to ruin the lives of Mrs. Lively and her family. So this all happened before she put a statement in, you know, because she put these rules forward, what she wanted, which was really aftermath. Really, wasn't it? It was accrued afterwards, you know what I mean? She did these things afterwards, sort of thing, in reaction to him not tolerating it. With that backing, Mr. Boldoni and Wayfarer Associates embarked on a sophisticated press and digital plan in retaliation for Mrs. Lively exercising her legal protected right to speak up about their misconduct on set. Well, then he's free to speak, isn't he? With the objective of intimidating her and anyone else from revealing in public what actually occurred. On July 31st of 2024, following the recommendation of their publicist Jennifer Abel, so it's just someone with the same name, Wayfarer and Mr. Boldoni retained a crisis communications specialist named Melissa Nathan and their company, the agency group PRLLC, TAG. Miss Nathan delivered a proposal to Boldoni which included a website to discuss, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audience in the right way, start threads of theories, discuss, this is the why. To be fully 100% protected, Mrs. Nathan also proposed the creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change narrative and stay on track. Per Mrs. Nathan, all of this will be most importantly untraceable, she says, Mrs. Nathan. How does she come across this information about what she said? She say in front of her? Was the witnesses there? Was the other people there? There's no mention of that. Or, as Mrs. Abel described it, the plan was to engage in public media mitigation and proactive fan posting to encounter the negative, as well as the social manipulation. 3. Miss Lively obtained communications set forth in this complaint, though legal process, including a civil subpoena served by Jones Works LLC. Back to 10. This plan went well beyond the standard of crisis PR. What Mrs. Nathan proposed included a practice known as astroturfing. We'll explain what that is in this, which has been defined as practice of publishing opinions and comments on the internet, in the media, etc. Also, it's to change and manipulate a narrative. It's lying, basically. It's you know what, right? There's a lot of productions out there who do these, where they have like 100 followers, a million followers and things like that. These things are from publicists, PR. The PR paid, most of them. They really are. You notice because they don't speak about certain people, because that's in their contract not to, probably. And you can tell what you want about the opposite to change a person's change a person's mind about something. And I don't like to jump on the bandwagon. I like to read everything and then make a decision. Now, I did with the Johnny Depp case, and I came to the conclusion he was an abusive man. Now, many people might not agree on that, but I seen the photo of that mark on her face. That was enough for me. And I'm not being funny enough, and he always had a temper, always, I find it very difficult that people don't know that, it's like, wow, please, seriously. Yeah, so I explained astroturfing. On the 2nd of August 2024, TAG circulated a scenario planning document to Boldoni and Mr. Heath and others. Really good with the PR, aren't they? I never thought of all this stuff. This is what happens, you see. You've got to have your own thoughts, you've got to have your own opinions, you've got to watch things like this with the actual documents on, so you know for yourself and you're not believing these red pill swallowing nutters. But she has got a reputation, this lady, for being a bitch. So it seems like she gave as good as she got with the whole sexual thing as well. When you see it now, when you see the text, you'll be like that. I have read this before, by the way. So Miss Nathan plans to propose strategies to advance misleading counter-narratives, including pushing Mrs. Nathan's narrative that Mrs. Lively had less than favourable reputation, proposing to explore planting stories about weaponisation of feminism, and misleadingly blaming Miss Lively for production members' job losses. Or maybe she did. I mean, that's terrible. She has got a few people thrown out for just looking at her. And she seems that astroturfing, the Cambridge Dictionary describes as astroturfing is the deception practice of hiding the sponsors of an orchestrated message Hey, welcome back to another episode of Gush Reviews, aka Morbid Sunshine. I wanted to go through today Blake Lively's complaint, and I didn't go through it completely the other day, so I'm just gonna tag it all together from 1 to 10, where I went up to actually here. So I'm going to carry on from 13 onwards. If you've missed the other episode, catch part 1. It's an hour and a half. It was about 4 days ago. I'm not sure now. Yeah, and we'll carry on from here. So what happened was Miss Abel sent a text to Nathan about burying the allegations that were going to come up regarding Blake Lively and, Boldoni. And this text exchange expresses that they will destroy her. And the next, so I'll just read it out. From Jennifer Abel to Nathan, Melissa Nathan. You can, of course, do that, but I do think he needs to know. I'm going to confidentially send you something. Confidentially send you something. He's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried. And this was sent on the 2nd of August in 2024. She replies, of course. But you know, when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do, because that could get us in a lot of trouble. And that was sent the same day, just a second afterwards probably. We can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. He has to look at it as an information document for us to be armed with, that's all. Imagine if a document saying all those things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. Mrs. Nathan followed this by assuring Mrs. Abel, you know, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. Okay? This text says, you know, we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. We will. I'll be very tough. A few days later, on the 5th of August, Boldoni set the narrative for the social media campaign, sending Mrs. Abel screenshots of the thread on X that accused another female celebrity of bullying a woman. Mrs. Boldoni stated, this is what we would need. Justin's text. So he knows exactly how to set this up in motion, all the social media. I mean, using Hailey Bieber as an example, and says on the top, Hailey Bieber's history of bullying many women, not just Selena Gomez, throughout the years. And that sort of narrative of her, you know, that she's women jump on that, you know, she's pretty as well. And she says, back to the man. This is what we would need, he says. And she replies back, yes, I literally just spoke to Melissa, basically sucking his cock, as she says it probably, about this, and a break about what we discussed last night on social and digital. Focus on Reddit and TikTok and IG. I mean, really setting the narrative by his own website and things like that is a little bit sketchy to me. But yeah, I have very little faith in this case at all. I think Blake will be set up here. Mrs. Abel responded that she had just spoke to Melissa about this, about what we discussed last night for social and digital. Mrs. Abel added focus on Reddit and TikTok and IG, with assurance that Mrs. Lively would be destroyed and buried. Wayfarer and Mr. Boldoni directed Mrs. Nathan and her team to actively engage in their retaliatory social manipulation campaign. And let's be honest, that's what we've seen. But is it the way? I mean, Blake is difficult. Actors normally probably are. You know, they have to do a lot of, go to a lot of countries, promote the film and all that. Not always going to be perfect. You know, they're not always going to be how you perceive them to be. They're not always going to be the people you like. But you have to put that aside and say, you know, their actions, they speak for themselves, you know, and I believe there's some shocking allegations, you know. In the weeks and months that followed, their direction and approval of Wayfarer and Boldoni, the team engaged in a sophisticated, coordinated, well-financed retaliation plan. The retaliation campaign relied on more than just publicists and crisis managers spinning stories. They also retained subcontractors, including a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace. The weaponized and digital army around the country, from New York to Los Angeles, to create, seed and promote content that appeared to be authentic and on social media platforms and the internet chat forum. The Boldoni Wayfarer team could then feed pieces of this manufactured content to unwitting reporters, making content go viral in order to influence public opinion and thereby cause an organic pile-on to safeguard against the risk of Mrs. Lively ever revealing the truth about Mr. Boldoni. Mr. Boldoni and Wayfarer team created, planted, amplified and boosted content designed to create Mrs. Lively's credibility. They engaged in the same techniques and bolster Mr. Boldoni's credibility and suppress any negative content about him. 19. On August the 10th, the day after the release of the film Mrs. Nathan, team reported they had started to see a shift on social due to largely Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative against Lively. Mrs. Abel. To Mrs. Abel. Hi team, so far extremely irritated pick up on the Daily Mail and page 6. We'll continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed, but so far it's been steady coverage on pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social due to largely Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Again, we'll continue to send leaks and screenshots, but wanted to send an update in the meantime. And that was the 10th of August of last year. Same day, Mrs. Nathan noted that, as part of the shift, the majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them. Lol. From Melissa Nathan to Jennifer Abel. The majority of the socials are pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them, and she's laughing about it. Mrs. Nathan then bragged to Mrs. Abel that Mr. Boldoni doesn't realise how lucky he is right now, by which they were referring to the very successful efforts to shut down stories that would have revealed how Boldoni's behaviour, including sexual connotations on set, had made cast and crew beyond Mrs. Lively uncomfortable. So it's more than Mrs. Lively feeling that. From Melissa to Jennifer Abel, he doesn't realise how lucky he is right now. He needed to press on him just how fucking lucky. The 10th of August. Melissa to Jennifer, the whispering in the ear, the sexual connotations, like Jesus fucking Christ, other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there is just so much. Speculation goes a long way, doesn't it? You know, people reading into stuff, people having opinions for yourself instead of trying to listen to Blake first and then take it on for what it is. Yeah, she did pose action probably because she felt he was unprofessional, perhaps. You know, maybe she could put the sexual shit aside until he tries to blacken her name. It's sick watching all the things on the TV, knowing that this the type of coverage it's getting, and it's worked out in Boldoni's and Wayfarer's favour. That it shift everything to Lively being like Amber Heard, you know. These are people who care for women. These are people who care for entertainment. They're not, you know, they pay for it. All these like publications on TV, they're putting out this shit because it gets you the narrative, the true narrative doesn't get views. So what should we put out there? He's done for her anyway, because these text messages alone. Less than 1 week later, they again bragged about how they shut down stories regarding HR complaints on set. They shut down 4 major standings in HR. She puts in one text. Let's put it across. How she reads it out as well. From Melissa to Jennifer. Jan, this went so well. I'm fucking dying. I have to call you later in a bit to tell you how this went. It was genius. So okay, we went the 4 major standing down in HR complaints. I think we are fine on that bit. She sent this in that second as well. So this is regarding the standing down of these 4 people, and it was genius. What was so genius about it? On August 16th, Mrs. Nathan circulated the Daily Mail article entitled Miss Blake Lively set to be cancelled. String of hard-to-watch videos surfaced following tone-deaf Q&A to promote The End With Us, what could tarnish 36-year-old Golden Hollywood image for good. To which Miss Sable responded, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece." And Mrs. Nathan replied, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." And this is the heading, Miss Lively set to be cancelled, string of hard-to-watch videos, etc., etc. Another message, it's a link, and she's like, "Wow, you really outdid yourself." So it must be the link for the paper. I mean, what does that mean? Why would you outdid yourself? It's all manipulation. But people can't read into that, or people just don't care, because of all the videos circulating, that it's okay to punish, it's okay to be in that position. And also, I'm concerned there's 4 more people who've complained about misconduct. I'm going to put misconduct rather than the word I'm going to use. It should be used for them. And as their own words reveal, the purpose of this social manipulation plan was twofold. It aimed to both conceal the pattern of harassment and other misconduct by Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath and Mr. Wayfarer, and B, retaliate against Mrs. Lively by battering her image, harming her business, and causing her and her family severe emotional harm. Millions of people, including my reporters and influencers, who saw these planted stories, social media posts, and other online content, had no idea they were unwittingly consumers of a crisis PR astroturfing and digital retaliation campaign created and funded by Boldoni and Wayfarer to help Miss Lively. That is precisely the goal of astroturfing campaign, to light the fire and continue to stoke conversations, secretly blurring the lines between authentic and manufactured content and creating viral public outbreaks. Wow, never really thought about it. Yeah, makes sense that. I'm starting to question a lot that I follow. I really am, because certain things are coming now and it's making me realise, wow, maybe I've been wrong, about people. If you ever feel I am wrong, please tell me. I would like to know, because you know stuff that I don't know. I'd love to know. Even email me. As laid out in the complaint, Boldoni and Wayfarer-led public attack of Miss Lively was intended as a result of carefully crafted, coordinated and resource retaliatory scheme to silence her and others from speaking out about the hostile environment that Mr. Boldoni and Heath created. As such, it was not only unconscionable and a breach of contract, but also illegal under both state and federal law. Mrs. Lively brings this action to hold Wayfarer and its leaders, Mr. Boldoni, Heath and Sarowitz, accountable for the ongoing retaliation, threats and harm they have caused Mrs. Lively and other casts and crew and all of their families. Parties. The plaintiff, Miss Blake Lively, actress entrepreneur who co-starred in the serving and executive producer of the film. Mrs. Lively is an individual who resides in New York, New York. Defendant Wayfarer Studios LLC. I'm always wary of these LLCs. They work for people like Sony and shit. Is a production company co-founded by Justin and Sarowitz. Wayfarer co-financed and produced the film, OIC. Through its production entity, It Ends With Us Movie, LLC, and thus was the employer of all cast and crew on set, including Miss Lively. Wayfarer is Delaware Limited Liability Company, with its principal place in business in California. On information and belief, no members of Wayfarer Studios are citizens of New York. On information and belief, all of Wayfarer's members are citizens of California and or Illinois. The defendant, Mr. Justin Boldoni, is co-founder and chairman of Wayfarer and co-starred in and directed and served as a producer of the film. I was going to say predator of the film. It didn't really come out though. Mr. Boldoni is an individual who resides in Santa Paula, New York. California. Where's that gone? Brief note, Miss Lively is informed and believes that Mr. Boldoni and his associates have additional astroturfing plans that they have prepared and are ready to launch at a moment's notice. 29. Defendant Jamie Heath and an individual has been Wayfair's chief executive since March 2024 and was president of Wayfair during the production of the film. Mr. Heath resides at Los Angeles, California. 30. Defendant Sharowitz, the financier of Wayfarer. Mr. Sharowitz he resides in Illinois. Defendant It Ends With Us LLC is a company that entered into an agreement regarding plaintiff's acting service and regarding the contractual riders for the film. It Ends With Us Movie LLC is a California limited liability company with its principal place of a business in California. On information and belief, defendant Wayfarer is the sole member of It Ends With Us LLC. On information and belief, no members of It Ends With Us Movie LLC are citizens of New York. On information and belief, the members of It Ends With Us LLC are citizens of California or Illinois. Defendant Mrs. Melissa Nathan, who provides crisis management and communication services. Mrs. Nathan launched Agency Group PR LLC in January of 2024. That's very convenient, isn't it? And Mrs. Nathan is an individual who resides in North Hollywood, California. During a portion of relevant period, Mrs. Nathan lived in Brooklyn, New York. Defendant, the Agency PR LLC tag, is a company that provides services, including messaging and narrative development. Wow. Media relations and crisis communications and management. See, they're not saying all this on YouTube, are they? And digital and social strategy. TAG is a Delaware limited liability company with a principal place of business in Santa Monica, California. On information and belief, no members of TAG are citizens of New York. Defendant Jennifer Abel, CEO, co-founder of RWA Communications LLC. Mrs. Abel is an individual who resides in Beverly Hills, California, and provides public relations services. This court has original jurisdiction over the claims of full relief asserted in the complaints pursued. (36) Plaintiff title. I think that's 6. Causes action arise under federal law of plaintiffs, California. Claim arise from underlying facts and are thus so related to her federal claims that they form part of the same case or controversy. What? I just need a minute to read this properly. No, it's just details over jurisdiction. It says plaintiff. Okay. The court additional has original jurisdiction over the claims for relief asserted in the complaint. Because the matter in controversy exceeds the sum of $75,000, exclusive with interest costs, and no defendant is a citizen of the same state. This court may exercise personal jurisdiction over defendants pursuant of the New York civil practice law and laws and rules because of all defendants systematically, continuously conduct and solicit business within New York and availed themselves of privileges and conducting business in the state of New York. This court may exercise personal jurisdiction over defendants' pursuit in New York civil practice law and rules, including because hereupon information and belief all defendants transact and solicit business within state have committed the tortious acts described in this complaint within the state and or have committed such acts outside of the state causing injury to the plaintiff within the state. 40. As just a few examples, on the January 4th of 2024, Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath, in their own capacities and as representatives of Wayfarer, met in person in New York with Mrs. Lively to discuss her concerns regarding Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath's harassing behaviour and other on-set misconduct that started the sequence of events leading to this suit. Mr. Sarowitz threatened to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family at the film New York premiere. Mrs. Abel worked as an employee of Jones' work, with its principal place of business in New York during the time. Wayfarer contracted with Jones' work for certain communications and public relations services that gave rise to this dispute in an agreement under which Wayfarer consented to jurisdiction in New York. Mrs. Nathan conducted business from Brooklyn, New York, during a portion of the relevant period, in their efforts to bury Mrs. Lively and to conceal Mrs. Boldoni's behaviour on set. Mrs. Nathan and Miss Abel targeted. See, these two are Mrs. as well, like Miss, and I wouldn't surprise me if both of them are like under his spell, so to speak. You know, targeted in New York by, among other things, communicating with journalists based in New York. Well, they also are aware that he is slimy, aren't they? By the communications, tells us that they know he's got behaviour issues. Communicating with journalists based in New York, including at least one journalist at the New York Post, and each of the defendants' tortious acts caused injury to Miss Lively, her family and or her business in New York. Venue is proper in this district pursuant because a substantial part of the events or omission giving rise to these claims occurred in this district, and because defendants are subject to personal jurisdiction in this district. Factual allegations. Factual. A. Justin Boldoni and Jamie Heath of Wayfarer engage in inappropriate and unwelcome behaviour towards Mrs. Lively and others on set of It Ends With Us. 42. Mr. Boldoni launched Wayfarer along with Mr. Sarowitz in 2020. Mr. Heath serves as Wayfarer Chief and Executive Officer. Mr. Sarowitz is the leading financier of Wayfarer, and he and Mr. Heath and Mr. Boldoni are all close friends. Under Wayfarer banner, Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath have many platforms, including the Man Enough podcast, which they host together. Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath have positioned Wayfarer as a male feminist platform that explores gender roles, dismantles toxic masculinity, and creates a safer, judgment-free society for women. Right. Run by man. Mr. Boldoni serves not only as the co-founder and co-chairman of the studio that financed and ran production of It Ends With Us, he also served as a director, executive producer, and co-leader actor, playing the role of Kyle Kinneard. I believe the girl in it as well was underage when she had a relationship in this book. As studio head and director, all actors and crew and staff on film, including Miss Lively, answered to Mr. Boldoni. In his words, he was the leader who sat at the top of the totem pole, while Sony was the distributor releasing the film. Wayfarer was responsible for the production, and Wayfarer was led by Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath. Production of the film began in early May 2023. Oh, right. That early. Wow. And lasted until it was suspended in mid-June 2023 due to the Winter Glide of America strike. 45. During that time, Miss Lively and other cast and crew experienced invasive, unwelcome, unprofessional and sexual inappropriate behaviour by Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath. Because Mr. Boldoni and Mr. Heath held all leadership positions on the production, they answered to no one and brushed off or ignored concerns Mrs. Lively and others expressed. I can believe it. Mr. Boldoni ignored well-established industry protocols in filming intimate scenes and exploited the lack of control on set to behave inappropriately. Wayfarer failed to adhere to guild rules as welcome as Mrs. Lively contracts and standard industry safe protocols with respect to nudity, intimate scenes, which the Scene Actor Guild and American Federation of TV and Radio Artists acknowledge place performers in unequally vulnerable situations. 6. Such safeguards ignored by Wayfarer included providing performers with appropriate notice of nudity, simulated sex, and ensuring that 1. Consent is given free of pressure or coercion. 2. Signed nudity radars are in place, spelling out the perimeter of nudity and simulation. Safe and secure work conditions that are not detrimental to the performer, health and safety, morals and the carer. The use of intimacy coordinators to observe intimacy scenes. 47. Without this protection in place, Mr. Boldoni improvised physical intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively, with no intimacy involved. For instance, Mr. Boldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Mrs. Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take. Mr. Boldoni insisted on shoot the full scene over and over again, well beyond what would have been required on an ordinary set, and without advice and notice of consent. That would be uncomfortable. And there is set rules, in place. I thought I would look into Boldoni, see if he's got any case notes. And I found this. He's been sued before. Norman versus Wayfarer Studios. Discrimination and retaliation. Same thing that Lively's doing him for. Introduction. In a high-profile case that has garnered significant attention in the entertainment and legal industry, Shane Norman has filed a lawsuit against Wayfarer Studios, its co-founder Justin Boldoni, and other associated parties. The case currently pending in California Court Appeal, a second appellate district, raises serious allegations of racial discrimination, retaliation, and breach of contract and wrongful termination. He terminated someone's contract because he retaliated by the way he spoke to him. The outcome of this case would have broader implications for employment law, particularly within the creative industry. Norman versus Wayfarer Studios is real. It was filed on November 2nd, 2021 in California Courts of Appeal. The background of the case. Shane Norman, a former employee of Wayfarer Studios, alleges he was wrongfully terminated after facing discrimination and retaliation in the workplace, according to the lawsuit. Norman was initially hired as a general manager for a key project within the company. However, the complaint details how his employment was allegedly undermined due to discriminatory behavior from his colleagues and superiors, including instances where he was marginalized, excluded from key meetings, and subject to racial bias. The complaint specifically accuses Boldoni, Wayfarer Studios, and other unnamed defendants, those 1 to 20, of engaging in unfair employment practices. Norman alleges that despite being promised job security and leadership role and equality participation, his employment was abruptly terminated under the pretextual reasons that masked the company's discriminatory practices. The key allegations in the lawsuit. Norman's second amended complaint includes several legal claims, each presenting a different facet of alleged wrongdoing. Discrimination in violation of California law. The Fair Employment Housing Act prohibits discrimination, employment based on race, amongst protected characteristics. Norman claims that Wayfarer Studios and its executives treated him unfairly based on his race, subjecting him to differential treatment compared to his non-black colleagues. Retaliations for complaints of discrimination. According to the complaint, Norman reported instances of racial insensitivity and the workplace bias to the company's human resources department and senior leadership. Instead of addressing these concerns, Wayfarer allegedly retaliated against him by demoting him, cutting his salary, and eventually terminating his contract. So there you go, that's the type of company Boldoni is running. I'm going to finish here and edit it all, and I'm going to be back doing part 2 and then part 3. It's a big piece and it's not going to be all me reading it out in one go. I'm sorry for that. Please subscribe or put a notification on, and you'll be notified when the next one comes out. Take care for now. Bye-bye.